Hey, I'm Sophia. Before we start, go grab a snack and get comfortable for a bit. These stories take their time, and they are told the way I'd tell a friend late at night. I really hope you enjoy them. This story has one update on it and my own opinion at the end. Comment and tell me if you agree. Let's begin. I caught my fiancé cheating. I moved on and found true love that they never expected. I didn't scream when I opened the hotel room door and saw him. That still surprises me. I just stood there, holding the little cardboard key card in one hand and a bottle of cheap Prosecco in the other, while my almost husband scrambled off the bed, half naked, and the woman beside him yanked the sheet up to her chest. The TV was still playing the romantic playlist I'd made for our pre-wedding stress getaway. My legs went tingly and useless, like they belonged to someone else. The condensation on the bottle slid down over my fingers, and I remember thinking, weirdly, that I was going to drop it on the carpet and get charged a stupid cleaning fee. Hannah, wait, this isn't. Mark's voice cracked as he grabbed his jeans from the floor. He stepped toward me, hand outstretched, like he could just shepherd me back into the hallway and rewind the last 5 seconds. Behind him, Chloe from his office. Oh, the irony squeaked. I didn't know she'd actually be here, as if I was the intruder in my own relationship. Someone's perfume, hers, not mine, hung heavy in the air, sickly sweet and cloying. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it over the stupid song about forever love playing in the background. I set the Prosecco bottle down on the dresser very carefully, like if I moved too fast the entire universe would shatter with it. We'd been together for 6 years when that happened. I met Mark when I was 21 and still believed that if you love someone enough, it works out was an actual rule and not just something people write under Pinterest quotes. He was the charming one in our friend group, funny, confident, big talker. I was the quieter one, the planner, the mum friend, who knew where everyone's keys and phones were at the end of the night. It felt almost unreal at first that he'd picked me out of everyone to chase. My friends said he softened around me, that I balanced him out. I took that as a compliment. Now I recognize it was code for, you're doing emotional labor he should be doing for himself. The first time Mark told me he loved me, we were sitting on a greasy picnic blanket at a music festival. There was ketchup on his shirt and sunburn on my nose. I remember because he grabbed my hand and said, I can actually see a future with you, like he'd just surprised himself. At 21, that sentence felt like winning the lottery. A future. With him. Cue the montage. Moving in together, sharing a tiny one-bedroom and a sagging IKEA couch, cooking bulk pasta so we could pay rent. The red flags walked in early. They just came dressed as quirks. Mark flirted with waitresses because it's just being friendly. He'd ignore my texts when he was out with the boys, and then act like I was clingy for asking if he got home safe. He hated being told he was wrong, so I got very good at picking my battles. When we fought, he'd tell me I was overreacting and then dramatically sleep on the couch, leaving me in the bed to stew with this gnawing guilt that somehow everything was always my fault. But Mark was also the guy who made me tea when I had cramps, who went with me to visit my grandmother, who learned my little brother's favorite video game, so he could talk to him. I clung to those pieces like proof I wasn't stupid for loving him. The proposal came on our 4-year anniversary. It was not surprising. Mark had accidentally left a tab open on my laptop with, how much should I spend on engagement ring a week before, but it was still sweet. We were at the beach. The wind was doing terrible things to my hair, and he got down on one knee in the sand and said, let's make this official. I don't want anyone else. Everyone went wild. My mum cried when I called. His mum practically adopted me on the spot, sending Pinterest boards of wedding centerpieces. Friends bought us bride and groom mugs. For the first time in my life, I was the main character of something. The wedding planning, though, was where the cracks turned into craters. Mark wanted a huge party. I wanted something smaller. He wanted his college friends as groomsmen even though 2 of them had cheated on their partners multiple times. They're fun, he said. I wanted my cousin as a bridesmaid. He complained she was too negative and that her purple hair would ruin the photos. He had opinions about my dress, my hair, my shoes. I brushed it off as stress. Everyone says weddings are stressful, right? Then there was Chloe. She joined his office about a year before the hotel incident. I met her at one of his work dinners. She was exactly the type I always assumed Mark would end up with. Tiny, blonde, high-pitched laugh, wore heels to the pub. "Oh my God, Hannah, I've heard so much about you," she said, hugging me like we were sorority sisters. "You're so lucky to have Mark. He's, like, legendary in the office." Legendary. Great. They started working late together a lot. At first, it made sense. They were pitching to a big client. Timelines were crazy. But when just one more hour at the office turned into him stumbling home at midnight, smelling like whiskey and citrus perfume, the little alarm bell in my brain started clanging. "Do you think she's into you?" I asked one night, keeping my tone light. He snorted. "Not everything is some big drama, Hannah. She's 24 and dating a DJ. Relax." I tried. I really did. The weekend of the hotel trip was supposed to be our reset. His idea, actually. "Let's get away from the wedding madness," he said. "Just you and me, like when we first started dating." My friend group threw me a little send-off brunch that morning, complete with Polaroids and mimosas. I was so stupidly happy. I took a selfie in the Uber, veil-themed headband and all, and texted it to him. "On my way. Ready for you." He didn't reply. I assumed he was in the shower, or napping, or something equally innocuous. When I got to the hotel, the receptionist smiled and handed me the key. "Your fiancé checked in an hour ago," she said. "Room 814. Congratulations, by the way." The lift felt like it took forever. I remember humming under my breath, nerves buzzing, rehearsing some flirty line in my head about room service or me first. Then I opened the door. The rest is a blur, but some moments stand out with cruel clarity. The way Chloe scrambled, nearly falling off the bed. The way Mark's face went from pleasure to pure, animal panic in half a second. The way my fingers went numb around the key card. "Hannah, it's not what it looks like," he said, and I actually laughed. A horrible, sharp noise ripped out of me. "Oh, okay," I said, hearing my voice shake. "So your coworker just tripped and fell naked onto your—" "Stop," he hissed, glancing at her. "Can we please talk about this like adults?" "I thought that's what we were doing when we booked this room," I said. "Talking. As adults. About our wedding." He stepped closer. "You've been so distant lately with all the stress and your work and your anxiety," he said, like my nervous system was a character flaw. "Chloe, and it was a mistake. It doesn't mean anything. You know I love you. We can work through this." Chloe piped up. I didn't know it was serious. I turned on her. "I have been engaged to him for over a year. You liked the photo of our engagement party." Her face went red. "I thought he said you guys were having problems." I looked at Mark. He avoided my eyes. Something in me snapped into focus then. The part of me that had been bending, explaining, shrinking, suddenly stopped. "I'm not doing this," I said. My voice came out calm, almost eerily so. "I'm not marrying you." "Hannah, don't be dramatic," Mark snapped. "Think about everything we've put into this. The deposits. The guests. Our families." "I am thinking about everything," I said. "That's exactly why I'm done." I walked out, leaving the Prosecco on the dresser like a weird, fizzing gravestone for our relationship. My hands shook so badly in the elevator, I dropped my phone. When I picked it up, there was already a text from my mom. "Have fun, sweetheart. So happy you're taking time for each other." I almost threw up. The fallout was ugly. There's no delicate way to cancel a wedding 6 weeks out. Vendors were half sympathetic, half furious. My mom oscillated between "good for you for not tolerating cheating" and "are you sure it was really cheating? Maybe it was just a drunken mistake." My dad said quietly, "If you don't trust him, you can't marry him," then stepped back as the women in the family went to war. Mark went full damage control. He showed up at my apartment with flowers, crying, saying he'd go to therapy. He'd cut Chloe off. He'd transferred apartments. He sent long emails dissecting his childhood and attachment style. He called my friends, trying to recruit them as mediators. I blocked him, unblocked him to send. The level of betrayal it takes to bring another woman to our pre-wedding hotel room is not something I can come back from. I hope you figure your life out. I'm done. Then I blocked him again. My family was split. My mom's side mostly backed me. My aunt sent a text that just said, "If he does it before the wedding, imagine what he'd do after." My grandmother, in her blunt wisdom, said, "Better a broken engagement than a broken marriage." His family was a different story. His mom, Linda, called me sobbing, asking if there was any way we could put this behind us. She also slipped in, "He said you've had intimacy issues for a while," which made my skin crawl. I had intimacy issues because your son repeatedly made me feel like any boundary was an inconvenience, but sure, let's blame my nervous system. The first 3 months after the breakup were rough. I cried in the shower. I cried in the supermarket. I cried when Spotify randomly served me the song we'd picked for our first dance. I also felt this strange, disorienting freedom. No more tiptoeing around his moods. No more waiting up for him to text back. I started therapy. At first, I went to talk about the cheating, but I ended up talking about a whole lifetime of people-pleasing, of making myself small to keep the peace. My therapist, Joe, had a way of asking one simple question that would make my entire internal scaffolding wobble. What if you didn't have to earn being chosen? Somewhere in all that mess, I rediscovered pieces of myself I'd shelved during the Mark years. I picked up painting classes again. I went out with friends without texting anyone a full itinerary. I cooked weird recipes solely because I wanted to, not because they were impressive. I met Ryan at a friend's game night. He was not the type my parents, or my ex, would have expected. Quieter than Mark, but not in a withdrawn way. Tall, slightly scruffy, with those soft, kind eyes that actually make you feel seen instead of examined. He laughed at my stupid jokes. He helped stack chairs at the end of the night without making it a big production. We didn't start dating right away. In fact, after Mark, I was suspicious of my own judgment. But we kept running into each other through mutual friends, then at the coffee shop near my work, then on the train. One night, after we'd walked the long way home talking about everything from terrible school teachers to favorite childhood snacks, he stopped and said, "I like being around you, but I don't want to push anything if you're not ready." The difference between that and Mark's "don't be dramatic" was like breathing fresh air after living next to a petrol station. Eventually, I was ready. When I soft-launched Ryan on my Instagram, just his hand holding mine on a coffee cup. Mark viewed the story within 3 minutes. Then I got a message request from him. Long, rambling, dripping in nostalgia and regret. I deleted it without responding. My parents met Ryan at my cousin's birthday dinner. My mom was polite but reserved at first, clearly expecting some flashy replacement for her almost son-in-law. Then she watched Ryan help my grandma to her seat, chat to my little brother about a video game he'd Googled beforehand, and insist on helping with the washing up. On the way home, she said, "He seems solid." In mom language, that's a rave review. By the time our 1-year anniversary rolled around, I realized something wild. I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was just in it. Day-to-day, boring, lovely life.
No hiding conversations.
No justifying why my partner's behavior wasn't that bad. And that was when true love they never expected stopped sounding like a cliche and started feeling like my actual daily existence. If you want a clean, cinematic ending, it's this: me and Ryan sitting in a tiny restaurant that used to be on the "maybe we'll have our engagement party here" list, clinking glasses over the life I almost didn't let myself have. Mark, somewhere out there, watching from the digital sidelines as the woman he took for granted moved on without turning back. That could be the end of a story. Okay, pausing here like this is the mid-season finale because there's already a lot to chew on. First off, Hannah walking into that hotel room might be one of the most viscerally awful moments you can imagine, and Mark still has the audacity to lead with, "It's not what it looks like."
Sir.
It is exactly what it looks like, plus probably worse. The pattern here is classic. Mark enjoys all the stability and emotional caretaking of a long-term partner, while still craving validation and ego strokes from whoever's nearby. Chloe isn't innocent. She absolutely knew there was at least an engagement, but she's also clearly been fed the "we're having problems" script that cheaters love to recycle. Not an excuse, but a pattern. The thing I love is how quiet Hannah's turning point is. There's no screaming, no throwing the Prosecco, no dramatic slap, even though that would be satisfying. It's just, "I'm not marrying you." That's it. That's the whole revolution in one line. She goes from being the woman who tolerates quirks to the woman who cancels a wedding 6 weeks out rather than build her life on quicksand. And then there's Ryan. Exhibit A in healthy can feel boring at first when you're used to chaos. He's not fireworks and drama. He's chairs being stacked at the end of the night and genuine respect for her pace. That's the kind of relationship that quietly outperforms the cinematic ones. But you know this isn't over. Mark has not fully exhausted his supply of audacity yet, and somewhere out there is a big social event or family moment where all these threads are going to tangle again. Update about a year later. Hi again. A few people asked for an update last time I posted, and honestly, I didn't think there'd be much to say beyond still happily out of the trash fire. But life enjoys plot twists, apparently. When I last wrote, Ryan and I had just settled into that comfortable, stable rhythm that felt like the opposite of everything with Mark. We moved in together officially about 3 months ago, into a small but sunny apartment with an actual dining table instead of eating off the coffee table like raccoons. My mom has warmed up to him to the point of texting him directly for tech support, which I'm trying not to be jealous about. Mark, meanwhile, stayed a ghost presence in the background. Mutual friends would mention seeing him out with Chloe or hearing about his half-hearted attempts at therapy. I kept him blocked, partly for my sanity, partly because I meant it when I said I was done. Then came my friend Jess's wedding. Jess has been friends with both me and Mark since uni. When she got engaged, she did the kind, grown-up thing and called me. "I want you there," she said, "but I know this might be weird because Mark is definitely on the guest list too." No pressure. I thought about it for a week. My therapist asked, "What would going give you? And what would staying home protect you from?" In the end, I decided to go. Not to make a point, not to parade a new relationship, but because Jess is my friend, and I was tired of orienting my life around avoiding one-man shadow. The day of the wedding, Ryan straightened his tie in the mirror and said, "Last chance to bail. We can accidentally miss the train and go get dumplings instead." I laughed, stomach doing a small flip.
No.
I want to go. I might need dumplings after, though. Walking into that venue felt like stepping onto a stage where everyone already knew the script except me. People did the double-take thing. Smile at me. Eyes flick past to see if Mark was nearby. Recalibrate. A couple of friends gave me those too bright, "You look amazing," compliments you reserve for people you're low-key worried about. And then I saw him. Mark was at the bar, back turned, wearing a navy suit I recognized. Chloe was beside him in a tight green dress, laughing at something he said, her hand on his arm. They looked fine. Not radiant. Not miserable. Just two people who made a series of choices, and were now living inside them. I felt an odd wave of relief. Like, oh, that's it? The big boss at the end of the level is just a guy at a bar. He noticed me a second later. I watched the recognition travel across his face. Surprise, then something like panic, then an attempt at a charming smile that didn't quite land. We did that awkward nod from across the room. I turned back to Ryan, who leaned down and murmured, "Want to leave?" "No," I said.
I'm okay.
And I realized I was. The ceremony was beautiful. I cried, but in the normal, weddings are emotional way, not the my life is falling apart way. During the reception, Jess pulled me aside. "Thank you for coming," she said, squeezing my hand. "It means a lot. And for what it's worth, everyone here knows what he did. No one is secretly judging you for leaving." That might have been the most healing sentence of the entire night. Later, while Ryan was in the bathroom, I ended up alone at the dessert table, trying to decide if I could morally justify a third slice of cake. That's when Mark approached. Hannah, he said, hovering at the edge of the table like a nervous intern. Hey. Hi. I replied, not offering more. You look good, he said. Happy. I am, I said. He shifted from foot to foot. Look, I know you probably don't want to talk to me, but I wanted to say I'm sorry.
Properly.
Not in a 10-paragraph email you didn't read.
He wasn't wrong.
I was a coward, he continued. I did something unforgivable, and then I tried to control the narrative instead of owning it. I told people we were having issues because it felt better than admitting I blew up the best thing I'd ever had for something that meant nothing. I'm genuinely glad you're doing well. You deserve that. Old me would have comforted him at this point. It's okay, we all make mistakes. New me just nodded. Thank you, I said. It did hurt. A lot. But leaving was the best decision I've ever made. I glanced over his shoulder at Ryan, who'd just come back and was waiting a polite distance away, giving me space. I hope you figure things out too. He followed my gaze. Is that?
My partner, I said.
Ryan. Something flickered in his eyes. Envy? Regret? Ego bruised that I had upgraded my life without him. He seems stable, Mark said, like it was an insult and a compliment at once. Yeah, I said. That's kind of the point. We parted then. No dramatic scene, no shouting. Just two people acknowledging a fork in the road that had happened a long time ago. The funny thing is, the real drama didn't come from Mark. It came from his mom. A week after the wedding, I got a Facebook message from Linda. I hadn't heard from her in over a year. I saw photos of you with your new boyfriend, she wrote. I'm glad you're happy. I just hope one day you can forgive Mark for his one mistake.
He's really changed.
One mistake. Bringing another woman to our hotel room 6 weeks before the wedding and then blaming my intimacy issues is not forgetting to buy milk. For the first time, I didn't ignore her. I wrote back. I appreciate the message. But cheating isn't one mistake for me, it's a deal breaker. I have forgiven him in the sense that I don't wish him harm. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I'm happy now. I hope you can respect that. She left me on scene. Which, honestly, is the most on-brand thing she could have done. As for me and Ryan, no, we're not engaged yet. Our timeline is ours, not a race to prove anything to anyone. But we talk about the future openly, where we'd like to live, whether we want kids, how we'd handle money. We've had arguments about stupid things like dishes and bigger things like how we'd support each other during family issues, and every single time, I've walked away feeling heard instead of erased. The craziest part? My little brother pulled me aside last month and said, I like Ryan more than Mark. You laugh more now. That, more than anything, feels like the real ending I didn't know I was heading towards. Time to put everyone on the metaphorical stand, because this cast deserves a proper review.
Hannah, absolute MVP.
Not because she handled everything perfectly. She cried in supermarkets and doom-scrolled and second-guessed herself like any real human would, but because when the line was crossed, she didn't negotiate with it. Walking into that hotel room and saying, I'm not marrying you instead of, how do we fix this, is a level of self-respect that a lot of people never reach. She still did the hard work afterward, too. Therapy, unpacking her own patterns, learning that being the stable one doesn't mean being the emotional doormat. Her biggest win isn't Ryan. It's that she built a life where she isn't constantly auditioning for the role of worthy partner. Mark, the ex this man, is a walking, talking cautionary tale about confusing attention with love. He had a partner who did the invisible heavy lifting, planning, emotional regulation, family glue, and still chased the cheap thrill of being desired by someone new. The hotel stunt wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a fully planned betrayal wrapped in a romantic weekend. To his microscopic credit, he eventually manages an actual apology without strings attached at Jess's wedding. But that doesn't erase the months of gaslighting, blame shifting, and behind-the-scenes narrative control. He's not a mustache-twirling villain, just a very ordinary kind of selfish. Chloe, she's not blameless. You don't accidentally sleep with your coworker's fiancé and then squeak, I didn't know it was serious when caught. She knew enough to recognize Hannah, to like engagement photos, to know there was a ring involved. She chose to believe whatever version of the story made her feel least guilty. That said, she's almost incidental. If it hadn't been her, it probably would have been someone else filling the role of ego booster who doesn't know the whole story.
Linda, ex mil.
A subtle but powerful supporting character in the drama. Her insistence on framing the affair as one mistake and bringing up Hannah's supposed intimacy issues shows how generational enabling works. Rather than hold her son accountable, she tries to recruit his ex as part of the rehabilitation committee. Her final scene, on Hannah's perfectly reasonable message, says everything about where her loyalties really lie. Ryan. Proof that boring is the highest compliment when you've survived chaos. He's not love-bombing, not demanding instant forgiveness for someone else's sins, not making every situation about his ego. He shows up, listens, respects Hannah's pace, and doesn't flinch at the existence of her past. The way he offers to skip Jess's wedding for her, but doesn't push his textbook supportive partner behavior. The real twist of this story isn't that Hannah found a better man. It's that she stopped organizing her life around Mark's gravity. Everyone else's choices just orbit around that one decision: to walk out of a hotel room and never again build a future on someone who treated her love like background music.